Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk hockey. And, of course, we are in the midst of the 24, now 23 team NHL playoffs. And we're going to talk about where we're at in that. But, Tom, I think we've got to start out with some kind of troubling story of Jake Muzzin yesterday. The Maple Leafs have a huge win, shutout. Frederick Anderson. They played the kind of game they need to play. They were strong defensively. They got the goals they needed. Their top players were playing well. And then on a play that was really hard to describe, Jake Muzzin ends up with what appears to be a neck injury. And he had to leave the bubble. They had to take him to the hospital. And all the early signs were good. You could see him moving his arms and legs. And they even said after the game that they felt it was going to be, it was all positive signs. But, now we've got issues, even if he is okay, is how long does he miss? Because they had said originally that if you left the bubble, you were going to have to be gone for 4 days in quarantine.
Yep.
So,
and you had 4 negative tests too, right? You had to test
4 negative tests. But now, last night, they backed off a little bit on that and said it depended on the circumstances.
Yeah, I saw that report. I can't remember, somebody from the National Hockey League saying that they could, if it was an injury, they could adjust that, right? So I guess they've got to say, okay, if he's gone to the hospital and they feel confident that the hospital was
right
to the bubble, then it
would and don't you think that makes sense? It's a little bit different than when you leave to go to, if your child was born, if you're going to a wedding but, when you're going to an injury, you're going into a sterile environment in theory,
right.
Where they're following, their own protocols. So, that actually does make some sense to me. The problem you run into with that, though, is, if it happens to, say they make the decision, the medical officer saying, okay, you can come back immediately. And then the next time the medical officer says, it's 2 days.
Yeah.
So the team that's with 2 days then goes, well, wait a minute. Why did Muzzin? So anyway, we're ahead of ourselves now because we really have not even heard the final diagnosis.
Right. And that was scary too, because you're right. I was watching it and I'm thinking, geez, he's moving and everything. But you can tell when he's talking to the trainer there, like he's under control, but he's clearly saying to him that he's in some distress. So sometimes when you get hit like he did, his head kind of get jammed like that. You have what they call a stinger, right? So you could kind of get, you could feel some numbness in your hands, your legs, or both. And it's a pretty scary thing too. I know when I hurt my back and I first, I really hadn't had back problems. When I first started going, I started getting the numbness in my leg. And that was the scariest part. Like, it wasn't like overly painful or anything, but just this numbness. And you really can't, like, for me, I could still skate, but I couldn't. I wasn't a great skater anyway, but I couldn't skate to the level that I had been. And so that was the scary part. So for him, it seemed like he had some kind of a stinger. It looked like he was fine. They were probably being very cautious, and I don't blame them whatsoever. But that's a scary thing when you're down like that. And you can tell it. He was talking to the trainer. But there was some worry on his face, because you get that feeling. You're like, oh God, that's one of the worst things you can ever think of. You break your leg or whatever. All right, it's going to heal. You're going to be fine. When you start talking about a spinal injury, and I don't want to say that that's it, but if he was scared that that's what it was at first, that's a scary thought.
Did you have a sense too that he couldn't get up?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I did too. Like there was I think he looked at me like he was trying to get up and he couldn't. And I think that worried him.
Right. So. And he's that kind of player that, like, he's a tough guy too, right? He plays a hard game. So if he's staying down like that, I mean, I'm sure that's probably one of the reasons that everybody on both teams, they know his reputation. If he's staying down like that and then the stretcher comes out there, like, that's when you're thinking, wow, this is really serious. So, but we've seen it before, and you hope it's a case where I think it's the right way to handle it. They're probably being overly cautious. He probably said to the trainer, whatever symptoms he had, if it was numbness in the arms or legs or both, then the trainer right away is going to say, okay, we need to really be careful with this here, and do the right thing. So I bet they did a great job.
Yeah, no, it was handled properly, and it really took away from a terrific victory by the Maple Leafs. When you look at going into this series, there was some concern expressed about Frederick Anderson, who really didn't have the kind of season that had been anticipated for him. And I think some people think that, maybe, he isn't quite the goalie that they expect him to be. I never really bought into that. I'm a big Freddie Anderson guy. I thought, he can step up in big games. I thought, he played well. Now he didn't face a lot of shots. Like I thought Columbus didn't play particularly well.
No. It was one of those games, too. It's probably tough on a goalie like Anderson, too, right? Where Korpisalo down the other end was playing unbelievable. Toronto was all over him. And then all of a sudden now Columbus comes down and they got some decent chances there for a little bit. And you think as a goalie, you're saying, okay, this is great. Korpisalo stopping everything the other end. If I let in a weak one, or even like a remotely weak one here where, that's going to really hurt the hockey team. But you're right. And I was one of those guys that we talked about it, that I didn't necessarily believe in Anderson that much. I could see those good games that he had, but I thought, he hasn't really proven it big time yet. But he did what he had to do yesterday. But Korpisalo is unbelievable. And Tortorella for Columbus, this coach, he was hilarious, too. They showed him on the bench there sometimes. He was after the referees. He was on his players. He clearly was not happy. After the game, his only quote was, Toronto played great, we sucked. Toronto played great, we sucked. He answered every question.
I don't like that. You know what a big fan I am of that. But I think you disrespect the game when you do that.
I know.
John Tortorella makes an incredible living out of being an NHL coach. And he makes that incredible living is because there's a lot of fans that, watch this sport. And I think he owes it to them to go out and sort of explain, what happened with his team. Now, I guess you could make the argument that he's still entertaining fans, because when he does that, some people really are amused when he comes out and, treats.
You think he's being disrespectful, like to the fans? The fans deserve answers. Is that?
Yeah, and he's just being, like that. Everybody knows what you're supposed to do in that situation. You're just supposed to go out and answer questions.
Yeah, but look at Bill Belichick with the.
I'd say I'm not a huge fan of Bill Belichick. I mean, I know he's a great coach.
Right.
He gets a lot out of his teams, but I don't like people who do that. I don't like that in regular life. Like, when I'm going out and I have an encounter with a cashier, I'm going to be always polite to them 100% of the time. And I expect them to be polite to me.
All right. So what do you think Tortorella's up to? I mean, he's a calculating guy. I know sometimes he's mad, but again, this isn't the first time, obviously, for him to act like that. I mean, I feel like to me, when the team plays bad like that, is he going to critique every player of how, like the reporter asked him, okay, who asked Seth Jones, how did he play? Well, you're going to critique him and say all these bad things, because really nobody played that well other than Korpisalo for him last night. And if he starts critiquing every player, is he concerned that he's ruining their confidence, or there's got to be some reason why he does that? Yeah,
but there's a way to do that without, acting like that and making yourself the story. There's a way just to go out. You can go out and just say, in general terms, we just didn't perform at a high level. Let's put it this way. If Rod Brindamore would have gone out there, or Cassidy, or any number of coaches in this league, they would have found a way to say that their team didn't play well and not come across as just a horse's rear end. They just know how to do it. I mean, that's just part of being a coach.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't, coaches don't have to call out their players, I
don't know. I guess I see it differently. I don't mind him doing that. I don't want, we played terrible. We're the Columbus Blue Jackets. We played terrible. I don't want the coach out there in public, critiquing our game in public. I mean, I don't. I just feel like you're giving away now. Everybody's looking. So here's what I don't like that the team didn't do today. So now the next time they play, everybody's going to be looking and saying, "Okay, I got to watch."
Come on. You're not giving away state secrets when you're out there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there is a case to be made that Tortorella is being entertaining. That he's playing a character.
Yes,
the character is the gruff coach. Yeah. That comes out, and so there are a segment of the population that will giggle when Tortorella goes out there and does that.
Right.
I just don't like it, because I just think, it doesn't, all the people who do it the right way, what's it?
Well, the problem is you're too good of a guy. That's right, because you treat people with respect all the time, and I mean,
I think that is disrespectful.
right. Well,
I think we all should.
If you watch all the broadcasters when he does that, they'll show the replays of him doing it, and then they go, "That's torts me a torts." Like they're kind of happy.
No,
like
well, yeah. I mean, what else you going to do? So,
right.
And like I said, it's great television.
Yeah. That's what I mean. The NHL Network shows it all the time, right? They can't wait for Tortorella quotes. It's almost disappointing when he acts normal. And
so that's what I'm saying. So you can make that case. I'm just saying I don't necessarily like it.
And I mean this is a total compliment. That's not the way you handle yourself. You don't conduct yourself.
No, but the other thing is too that I don't like about it is like if this happened, once every 5 years,
right?
That'd be fine. But this is getting old. Like, we see this too often with Torts.
He's toned it down a little bit. When he was here in New York before, and he and Larry Brooks used to go at it. I mean, that was nasty. And it was to the point where I think he got to the point here in New York with his press conferences. I mean, it's Madison Square Garden. It's a publicly traded company. They conduct themselves a certain way, and he was not conducting himself the way that people at Madison Square Garden conduct themselves. And I actually think he's toned down his act now. He's not as bad as he was before. So.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is I don't understand is he doesn't need to do this. Like, he's a terrific coach.
Yeah, and he's a great guy. We've talked about this before. When you meet him in person, I've met him at functions and everything like that, and he's this great guy, family guy, dog lover, all this kinds of stuff. And so when you see him do it, it's such a weird thing when you talk to him in person, you have this perception when you first meet him that that's the way he's going to act, and it's just it's not him at all.
Yeah. And the thing about it is like. He often talks about, disrespecting. Like if you go to his press conference and you are a reporter and you have your phone and it rings, like it bugs him to the nth degree, and he'll talk about how disrespectful that is.
Right.
And then he'll go and act like that.
Yeah.
It's like reminds me of the people we all know some people who will say, I have to speak my mind. That you say, I have to. That's who I am. I have to speak my mind. And then they say their thing. And then if you come back and offer your mind, they don't want to listen.
I know.
But they have to speak their mind, and you have to listen. But
I don't know where that rule came from that somebody has to speak their mind. I mean, if you're being asked a question, then speak your mind.
I have to speak my mind. But when you come back, they don't have to listen. So,
I know.
So anyway, he often speaks to disrespect. Now, saying that, I don't want to think that. I think he's terrific, and I enjoy. Like you talk to Seth Jones and some of the players on that team, they love their relationship with him. I think he's a good guy. He's very patriotic. There's a lot to like about him, and he and I are both dog guys. And all the years that I've known him. And I've had many one-on-one interviews with him. I have always had good interviews with him. Right. So one-on-one, he's fine. It's just in those, and there are a lot of guys that aren't good in those public things. Peter Laviolette isn't good either. Now he's not like that.
Right after a game too, I think I think there's a little bit of that. Like they think, what is this reporter asking me this stupid hockey? He knows nothing about the game. He's asking me these questions, make no sense. I don't want to answer him, right? So he's probably he goes into the interview after the game, already knowing that he's already going to be mad and he's going to be aggravated. Yeah.
Well, we've just made this a much bigger deal than it is. Like I don't.
That's what I like.
I don't lose sleep over it, and I just brought it up the fact that I don't like it, but it's not the end of the world. And if I was there, I'd still do my job and write a story and.
That's my role. That's my role in life, to stir the pot, though, right? I mean,
no. But anyway, I did want to talk about the Rangers a little bit. I just before we went on the air, I finished my story of 5 reasons why they were the first team eliminated.
Right.
And I think what we forget always in these situations, and I'm sure this is going on in New York right now, you look at it through the lens of the New York Rangers and not look at it for the fact that. This loss by the Rangers was more about Carolina than it was about the Rangers.
Right.
Carolina just came out and played great hockey. Like at one point they showed a replay of, and I don't remember who the defenseman was. Maybe you remember. And he was trying to bring the puck out, and he was hemmed in by basically a ring of Carolina Hurricanes who had just sort of created a lock over there that prevented him from getting out. And I thought, that is a microcosm of the puck pursuit that this team has and why they were so good in that 3 games.
Well, and we think I predicted the Rangers were going to win in 3 games. So obviously, I was way off on that. But I think you think back to the regular season when they had the beer league goalie come in. I can't remember the guy's name. Remember all the goalies got hurt and they brought in the goalie out of the stands, and they won that game in Toronto, beating the Toronto Maple Leafs, a really good Toronto Maple Leaf team. And after the game, they had Brind'Amour in the locker room talking about how proud he was of the guys, the way they played. They'd locked it down. They didn't give Toronto any chances hardly at all. And I think we kind of forgot I forgot anyways, that's what that team really is all about, right? They've shown it before. I think we kind of got misled by the fact that Rangers had beat them 4 times during the regular season and really kind of owned them over the last few years. To me, there was a few things. I was surprised how physically dominant Carolina was, especially early in the series. Like right off the bat, Brady Shea, like a minute and a half into the game, not known to be a real physical player, a good player. I like him, but he just runs over Foss, knocks him out of the series with a big hit, and that continued on and on. Williams got in a fight with Strome. All those things happened. I don't like. I'm going through the games. I mean, I'd like to find out what really happened with Shesterkin. Because he looked like he was fine yesterday. Now, maybe he had a little tweak injury, and they thought, listen, we've got Henrik Lundqvist. He's a good goalie still anyways. Let's not risk Shesterkin getting hurt with some injury. It was a groin or whatever it was. But I thought like in game 1, I don't think it was Lundqvist's issue. Like Lundqvist was fine. It wasn't the goaltending that was the problem, but maybe more the goaltending down at the other end in these probably the second and third games. I thought with Mrazek in game 2, he made 2 fantastic saves early in the game. Lundqvist let 2 goals in that he would like to have back. If you flip the script on that, and now it's a 3-1 Ranger game instead of a 3-1 Carolina game at that point, and obviously they go on to win 4-1. Last night, I mean, I tell you what, when Rod Brind'Amour, like that is a confident coach, like that he comes with arguably what they say is their backup goaltender in Reimer, especially when Mrazek played so well, especially in game 2, to now come back with Reimer. It's a game where you're closing out the other team. It's all. I don't think he did it this way. I don't think this is Rod Brind'Amour's style, but that's a slap in the face. If I'm the New York Rangers, I'm mad. I mean, every time this is an elimination game, you're coming with your backup goaltender when your other guy played so fantastic in game 2. But listen, Reimer played unbelievable last night. The team, it didn't seem like the team. Like he's got them so well coached that, and it's the players buying into the system too. That it didn't. I think it doesn't matter who they had in net. Like you said, they didn't have Dougie Hamilton, arguably the best defenseman, or he is the best defenseman. Pesce, another great defenseman, didn't play at all in the series. So 2 of their top defensemen, and they still did what they did against the Rangers. So you're right. I think the Canes deserve a lot of credit. But listen, the Rangers that played prior to the pause were not the same Ranger team that played in this 3-game series. They weren't. Fox, D'Angelo, who I love, are going to have fantastic careers. Were not the same players. I don't know what it was. It was at the stage. It was too big for them. They're young and everything. They're fantastic players. They didn't play well in the 3 games. The top line, like Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider played better last night, but they weren't themselves either. So, listen, I'm really high on the Ranger team. I think they're a good team now, and I think they're going to be a good team for a long time to come. But the 3 games they played against Carolina, yes, Carolina was great, but the Rangers weren't even close to what they were prior to the pause.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought of their young defensemen, Fox and D'Angelo, neither one of them played with the level of confidence. Yeah. Fox almost seemed tentative to me, he's a take charge guy, and he didn't seem that way to me.
Yeah, totally.
In that thing. I'll tell you the guy that I was impressed with on the Rangers was Lindgren. Like he did not look out of place. Yeah. He was the same as he was.
Yep.
He's going to be that real dependable defenseman that,
Trouba, they're on Trouba a little bit around here too. And I like him. I think the problem is that, he got that big contract, $8 million a year, I think it was. And Trouba isn't a guy that's going to go out there and make big plays all the time. He's got a big shot from the point, but I think that I thought he tried, and I admire him for doing it. I thought he tried to do too much, especially last night, and got himself in some trouble because like nothing was happening. So he felt like, I've got to try to make something happen. That's not his game. He's that good first pass coming to your zone, playing the body, tough in front of the net, good shot on the power play. And he was kind of forced to do more than he really should, and it kind of backfired on him.
Yeah, he does everything well, but nothing great. He's not exceptional, other than his shot really is searing.
Totally.
To say the least. Panarin had 10 shots in the 3 games, but wasn't nearly the player he was. And I just kind of feel bad, because when we think back to the way he was playing, like if that season had run its course and you had started the playoffs 3 days after the end of that regular season, you would have saw a much different Panarin. Like I felt of all the players that I've watched, he seems to have the most rust. He just it wasn't finished. He wasn't as dynamic as we saw in the regular season. And when you contrast that to how well Sebastian Aho played and Svechnikov, the top players on Carolina were buzzing.
Yeah.
And Panarin just wasn't the same guy.
Yeah. When Montreal signed Aho to that offer sheet, I hadn't watched Carolina that much. I knew he was a good player. I was like, is he really that good? But then watching these 3 games, man, he was really good. I mean, at both ends of the ice too, passing, shooting. I really underestimated the Canes, not just how good they play as a team, but how talented they are too. That's a much more talented team than I thought they were. So,
well, we remember your good friend Don Waddell basically said when the Montreal Canadiens gave Aho an offer sheet, he did the Carolina Hurricanes a favor because they wanted to get him signed, and when they knew what they had to pay him, and it really wasn't totally over the top for his talent level.
That's true. Looking at it now, that was a pretty good contract. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, then they were able to get him signed, and he's their guy, and now they've got Svechnikov, and we haven't even talked about Teravainen, who I think is a terrific playmaker.
Yeah.
So they got a lot going, and we'll give them a lot of credit. And but your team, Vancouver, stepped up. I really thought Minnesota, based on Game 1, would move along and get this done. But now it's a series, best of 5, 1-1.
Well, that Pettersson I like so much. I like him because of his skill, but he played a feisty game last night too. Fighting back and hitting people and punching in the back of the head. I mean, you don't want to see too much of that. You don't want to see him sit in the box, but yeah, you can. I like that pushback from Vancouver because I thought they kind of got pushed around a little bit by Minnesota in the first game, but they came to play. That's a good series. Minnesota's playing better than I thought too. That's a really good series. I like the hockey they're playing.
How is this? Because you don't look the least bit tired, but how is this playoff hockey affecting your True Grit lifestyle? I mean, you're getting up at 3:30. Well, you got to stay up till 1 to watch these games.
Sleep when you're dead. Sleep when you're dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Sleep
so
is
are you averaging 2 hours of sleep? Is that
we go on 2 hours. We can't keep doing that for a while. And I might get a 20-minute nap coming up, but it's funny. I've got this event coming up that I promoted on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter yesterday. I'm getting to hang out with all these Navy SEALs, and they've got this Navy SEAL swim. They're swimming across from Manhattan over to Ellis Island, where the Statue of Liberty is, and everything on the Hudson River. And it's choppy. It's a mess. So, when you hang around these guys, if you ever complain about anything, it's like you start complaining when you're on I do a show with the Navy SEALs. And if you ever complain about something, you think to yourself, maybe I shouldn't be complaining about what these guys go through. So,
yeah. Well, I just have absolutely loved having hockey to watch all day. And, I keep thinking of that famous quote by Robert E. Lee who said, "It's a good thing war is so horrible, for we might like it too much." And I think of this as, it's a good thing that we don't have this, because I'd have a hard time getting things done. I used to joke all the time as a beat writer that if for up to me, I'd play all NHL games on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays at 10:45 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
See, because then it would be easier for me as a writer to, you get down there, you beat the traffic, you get down, you get in, you get the game, you're not coming back out. But that's what it feels like to me. Like we're getting up, we're watching hockey. It's still on into the night. You can watch as much or as little as you want, and it's just been terrific. When we lose teams, I'm going to be disappointed.
I know, yeah, is that true? It's funny. Think of all the games you get to watch. You're talking about the surprise teams too, and the good games to watch. Watching the Islanders play. They're up 2-0 on Florida, and I kind of felt like that Bobrovsky for Florida, their goaltender, was going to be the weak link there. He hasn't been. He's been pretty good, but the Islanders are really, I think they're getting more offense than I thought they could have. And Matt Martin, who's kind of like their fourth line tough guy, scored for him yesterday. So I like the way the Islanders are playing. You know, I like it. I'm watching teams now, and I'm thinking, you know, now like we talked at the start. We really didn't know what to expect. We thought maybe the talented teams are going to have the edge on it. But I mean, the teams that are playing well defensively, that are getting good goaltending, and obviously that's playoff hockey. But they seem to be the teams that are playing the best. So to me, like the Islanders, the Canes, you know, the Minnesota, Vancouver, like all those guys. Some really good hockey, and I like the consistency too. Like I like to see those, like the teams like the Islanders, you know, show up and play the same way all the time. They had a little bit of a tough start yesterday, but they're playing well. They're a good team.
Yeah.
Your buddy Barry, or your cousin there, Barry Trotz.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we both decided they were the lock of the first round.
Yeah.
And
I just thought it was going to be different. I thought it was going to be that, you know, that Florida would play better, but that Bobrovsky would let them down and Islanders would get some easy goals. But that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Nashville looked better in game 2.
Yes.
They were atrocious in game 1.
Yes.
But they've looked like that's going to be a real series. I don't know. Maybe you know, oftentimes we see this in playoff hockey. Is there's a surprise result in game 1,
yep.
And then in game 2, the team that should win sort of takes charge. They win the game, and then, you know, even though it was a close game in game 2, when the Penguins won that game, I don't care if they won 1-0, 2-1, or whatever. When I was done watching that game, it just felt like the Penguins are completely in charge now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, when I got traded out to LA, and before the Wayne Gretzky trade, so he was still with the Edmonton Oilers. We played Edmonton in the first round, and we went into Edmonton. I think we beat them like 7-3 or something like that. First game in Edmonton, they're way more favored than we are. But after the game, it was almost a feeling like, oh God, it's coming the next game, you know. And I think they beat us like 7-2 the next game, and it was just like they were. It's funny. I thought they'd be more mad, but I think they've been through it so many times. They weren't even necessarily mad. They said, "Okay, guys, we gave them that one. Let's go take it over now and play our game." So, but you do know that team that's favored, if they do lose that first game, you can just about be guaranteed that they're going to come back and put a whooping on somebody in the second game.
Well, you know, after the Chicago won the first game against Edmonton, I was on radio and I basically said, you know, people were kind of excited about the Chicago win, and I basically said, you know, the Blackhawks are not going to score 6 goals a game.
Yeah.
And the Oilers may and probably will score 4 or 5 goals a game.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what's happened. I mean, holy cow. Like,
yeah, that goal, our friend here, Susan Brooks, is commenting too, the goal McDavid scored where he went wide and he goofed it on the backhand. Like, to be able to, he was so tight to get it up that high. You can just tell Crawford and Net's looking at him like, who does that, right?
Well, you know, the thing about Connor McDavid, it's not so much how he can skate without the puck. It's with the puck. Yeah. You know, to be able to skate and make the plays he does is so phenomenal. And I think that's why it's good for the league. You know, if they do make some kind of run, you know, just to be able to watch him play. Although, in watching the Oilers, and I had watched them quite a bit because I like watching McDavid, but in the playoffs when the games are important, you're watching them, you start to really see how much work is still to be done there on the Oilers team.
Yeah.
You know, they, despite the fact that, you know, you hear people say, well, you know, the Oilers have, you know, cleaned up defensively, and I like Darnell Nurse. They haven't cleaned it up enough.
No. I'm still not confident in that goaltending situation.
No.
So, yeah.
No, I'm not either.
All right, before we get done, so we got the Islanders and Panthers. So we got 4 games today. Let's do a little predicting here.
Sure.
Islanders, Panthers. You think Islanders are going to close it out, beat the Panthers?
I do. You know, they've just really sort of been in charge, and you know, it's almost like they're strangling the Panthers.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the Panthers have some talented players, like Barkov and Huberdeau can play. Yep. I'd be happy to have them on my team, but you know, there's not enough there, and I just don't like the culture in Florida. Like, I don't know why this team doesn't work, but it doesn't.
And
it doesn't.
You know, like, and I like Keith Yandle. He's a great player. Apparently, he's a funny guy, and I hate saying this to a player, but it just like that. He's one of your top guys, and I just don't like. He's not that guy that's like, he's not a guy that's like a Brooks Orpik, you know, there's one in Pittsburgh and one in Washington. The guy that just, you know, grinds it out all the time. And I know he's a skilled guy, but he just doesn't seem to have that grit to him to you know, push back. So I hate it, but I have to agree with you. I think the Islanders will beat the Panthers today.
Yeah.
All right, at 2:30, we've got the Predators playing the Coyotes.
I think the Predators are taking charge now. There's just not enough in Coyoteville,
definitely,
to get it done.
And I'll tell you what, if the way they played in game 2, the Predators seemed to, at least a little bit, they took a step towards understanding what it takes to win, right? There wasn't as many selfish penalties. They're playing a more disciplined brand of hockey. I'll tell you what, if they can figure that out, if they can get it through their head that we have to sacrifice to win, the Predators are one of those teams that are talented enough that they could go a long way. So I agree with you. I think the Predators will take charge. Penguins and Canadians.
Penguins.
All right, then I've got to disagree with you. I've got to think Carey Price is going to have a game where he just stands on his head. I think the Penguins will outplay them by a wide margin, but I think Carey Price is going to steal the game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those games that the Penguins win 4-1.
I'm going to say that the Montreal Canadiens are going to win 3-1. They'll be up 2-1. They'll score an empty net goal.
Okay.
Oilers and Blackhawks.
Oilers.
You know what? I love to disagree with you, and that's part of the reason I'm going to do this. But I also think Chicago is a good hockey team. I think Chicago is going to win. I think it's going to be it'll be a high scoring, like a 5-4 game, and I think Chicago is going to win.
Yeah, one thing we can say about that series, it's highly entertaining.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. And you played in that era. You know what I miss from the 1980s more than anything is mistakes.
Mistakes. Yeah.
You don't see them anymore because everyone is so well schooled, and coaches now will bench you until eternity if you make a defensive mistake. They were more tolerant in your time.
Well, remember one of my favorite clients was Andy Delmore. Remember Andy Delmore played in Nashville and in Philadelphia. And
good offensive player, but not so good defensive player.
He wasn't very good defensively, so they nicknamed him Andy Elmore because there was no D. So Elmore is Elmore. That was pretty funny. And he was good. He laughed about it too. He's a great guy. He was a talented player too, but Andy Elmore.
I like that. I'd forgotten that. You'd probably told me that, but I forgot that.
He's a good guy.
What's he doing today? I bet he's coaching.
He's coaching. He's coaching. Well, I guess he's not coaching right now, but he might be watching this. I get a note here. So he's a fun guy. He was a really fun guy. He's married, kids, and the whole bit. I think his wife's got a photography business. I think it is. They're doing pretty well living in Windsor.
Well, what I find interesting, guys who were not great defensive players end up going into coaching, and they usually stress defense more than anything else.
This is how not to do it.
Bet he's a hard-edged defensive coach.
Yeah, I probably just yelled at the guys. Yeah, that's funny. All right. Geez, we flew by again, Kev.
Yeah, we've gone beyond our limit, but there's so much to talk about, and this is so much fun, and I can't say enough. I think we really need to commend the NHL and the Players Association for putting this together. I've mentioned so often that I'm a baseball fan, and it's so frustrating to have to not see a full schedule of games because of the COVID-19 outbreak that's hit the league because there's no bubble. So thanks to all the players for who not violating it too.
Well, I tell you what, I hate there was a terrible scene yesterday with Muslin, but it was really interesting to see how prepared everybody was, the doctors and trainers and everybody, being out there with the mask on and the way they handled the whole situation. It took their time. It was a scary situation, but you could tell that this wasn't just some, we'll kind of throw it together at the last minute. They knew what they were doing. Yeah.
You know what else I like? I like to hear the raw emotion from players when he scores a goal. Instead of the crowd noise, I noticed yesterday Eller scored a goal that gave the Jets a lead, and he just screamed. I just love that.
That's true. They've done a really good job because they do pump some noise in there to get effective a goal, but not too much that it overshadows what else is going on.
They're in a tough spot because we all know what the favorite word on the ice is.
Yeah,
And you're hearing that in baseball every night. Back before the hockey
they cleaned it up quite a bit too, because back in the day, some of the stuff that was said on the ice there, I mean, it was funny to us who were playing, but if it would go public, it would not be.
A lot of kids watch this.
No.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week, and by then we'll have plenty to talk about. We'll see who was right or wrong about today's predictions.
That's right. See you next Monday, guys.